I think we're live. Welcome to the second session of the Scintillating Science of Logic. As you can see with our fine fellow Hegel here on the screen, we're going to be exploring his Science of Logic, which is one of the most difficult texts ever written by a human being. And it might be very difficult to follow along if you have no experience in this domain. So what I've done is I've included on the side here a video of relaxing scenery, so that if your mind lights on fire and things become difficult, just stare at this screen and it should hopefully help you relax and get grounded again as we dive deep into the most profound thing you might have ever experienced or might ever see once you understand what's called the inner unity of the words that we're using. So we're using a new format. It's a highlighting format to really show the different ways that we can read Hegel's words. He died about 250 years ago, so he's not around to tell us what he means, but there's 5 metamodes that I'm going to use as we're going word by word to really highlight the misunderstandings and what I believe is the true Hegel did, the correct way of interpreting what his intention was. And once you grasp that, I think what happened to me will happen to you. There is a profound level of clarity that is missing in all Hegelian contemporary scholarship. And if you're following along, in the description of the video is a Google link to this document that you're seeing now. And we're just going to go paragraph by paragraph, and you can click on it and you can leave a comment, which Andrew might test out because we're constantly experimenting and tweaking this process to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So you'll notice up here in the corner there's a word called external, and this means that we're going to first read the paragraph together as if we're what's called external consciousness. Hegel calls it external or ordinary consciousness, on why it feels so painful, why it's so tipsy-turvy when we're reading his words. You're going to get a universal experience that everybody gets when they first read this stuff. It seems like nonsense. It seems like gibberish. It feels like he's playing a trick on us somehow. But that's the inner unity, the inner contradiction of the words moving in their truth, which when we're external to it in ordinary consciousness, we don't grasp it. We see the outsideness of the words, which of course is the disorder. So we see and experience disorder instead of realizing the internal unity of the order. And so then we're going to read it a second time, and we're going to read it from the internal perspective on what Hegel really means. So yesterday we reinterpreted the first paragraph where Hegel is talking about the last 25 years. There's been a shift in philosophy, but it hasn't touched logic. To Hegel, logic is much more important than we ordinarily think. So let's read together here, and I'll try and highlight as we go along what most people will interpret the sentences to mean at the outset. They'll look at it as either artistic, religious, abstract philosophy, abstract science, and genuine wisdom, which I explained in the first video, so I won't go over it here, but there's some famous Hegelian perspectives left, right on the side to help you. But let's try reading it and seeing what happens. So paragraph 2 of the Science of Logic. This is the introduction, the preface. That which, prior to this period, was called metaphysics, has been, so to speak, extirpated root and branch, and has vanished from the ranks of the sciences. So how most people will interpret this in the beginning is that metaphysics sounds like an abstract philosophy term. And when they mean abstract philosophy, they're usually thinking of the ancient Greeks. And I'll pull up here one of the most famous ancient Greeks of all, Aristotle. And Aristotle was the one that first formalized logic around 2,500 years ago. So that first sentence is going to come off as abstractly philosophical, not concretely philosophical, which is what Hegel calls genuine wisdom. Most people don't have that interpretive lens, so we're not going to be able to use that until we fully understand what Hegel is saying. But the second half of the sentence involving sciences is, of course, what modern science would interpret as abstract science, modern perspectives of what we regard logic as participating in, as creating a system of modern science. Now the next sentence goes, The ontology, rational psychology, cosmology, yes, even natural theology of former times, where is now to be heard any mention of them, or who would venture to mention them? So this is where the tipsy-topsy-turviness starts to happen, where he's moving between modes very quickly. So ontology, rational psychology, where we were trying to define the mind in terms of reason, a priori reason. Cosmology, these all have the feeling of abstract philosophy again. And then we have this sudden shift into theology. Natural theology is where, there's an upgrading to theology or religion, where we're trying to get it to align with nature more. People were starting to realize after scholasticism that something felt off or wrong with how we were pursuing divine wisdom. So they tried to align it with nature more. That if God created nature, there was some kind of structure to nature that was true. And so the rest of the sentence, goes, of former times, where is it to be heard any mention of them, or who would venture to mention them? He's speaking to a certain demographic of people in his time, and those are the abstract scientists. So the French Revolution happened right around this time, and they had gotten rid of church and state. They were separating them, and they were saying there's something wrong with the reason of religion. So at this point in time, Hegel's in the 1800s, right after the French Revolution happened, and they're kind of in that period of the terror where they're chopping heads off and governments are switching quickly because it wasn't really grounded on a universal. And so people fought a lot. So he's speaking to these people. They're the ones that don't want to mention metaphysics anymore. They don't want to mention any of this ontology, any of this stuff, because it doesn't seem rational. So let's go on. Inquiries, for instance, into the immateriality of the soul, into efficient and final causes, where should these still arouse any interest? So these are the traditional perspectives of his time that are unfolding, I would say, in a kind of brutal way. And people have totally lost interest in this stuff, but the soul reminds us of religion again. So we start the sentence off thinking he's talking about religion, but then we get into efficient and final causes. So if you're not knowledgeable about philosophy in general, efficient and final causes are from Aristotle again. So we're talking about abstract philosophy. And Aristotle divided the world into 4 types of causes. So you might understand what the word cause means. It makes an effect happen. But there's 4 different ways, according to Aristotle, how that happens. And Hegel's bouncing between these modes pretty quickly, saying that nowhere are we finding this mention of something that he thinks is very important, which is the metaphysical kind of logic that is missing, especially over the last 25 years in Germany at that time. And of course, the rest of the sentences towards our abstract scientists, he's kind of like berating them in a certain way. Even the former proofs of the existence of God are cited only for their historical interest or for purposes of edification and uplifting the emotions. So he's really sort of showing how in his time the abstract scientists are placating religion. And so of course the proofs of the existence of God is what religious consciousness will love. A religious individual will look at this and really love this sentence and feel like, okay, Hegel's talking their language. So they'll stay interested. But then he's saying that the abstract scientists don't really care about the proofs of God. And when we say proofs of God, we mean Anselm and we mean Thomas Aquinas. They were trying to use logic to prove God's existence. But we're throwing all that out, the baby out with the bathwater, and we're even edifying and making fun of the superficiality of it, because reason of the French Revolution and human reason is so much clearer, so much more powerful, that all that stuff of the past was really just stories we told ourselves to make ourselves feel good. So Hegel's really coming out swinging and showing how the people of his time are not grasping metaphysics at all. They're even making fun of it and saying it's antiquated, it's old. The fact is, there no longer exists any interest either in form or of content of metaphysics, or in both together. So of course he's bringing metaphysics here again as abstract philosophy, and he means it in a deeper sense. Metaphysics is also divine to him, and it's also abstractly scientific. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say it's we'll leave it in abstract philosophy because the second sentence, or the next sentence here, says, if it is remarkable when a nation has become indifferent to its constitutional theory, to its national sentiments, its ethical customs and virtues, it is certainly no less remarkable when a nation loses its metaphysics, when the spirit which contemplates its own pure essence is no longer present reality in the life of the nation. So this is a strange thing he's saying here. He's mixing national politics with the metaphysics. And why is he doing that? Because later on he's going to show that the nation should follow the divine order or the metaphysical order or true scientific order, which is what the French Revolution is trying to do. And so all these comments about ethics, virtues, nations, he's trying to say that metaphysics is so central. It's as if a nation doesn't have a constitution, but is still functioning. So it's a bizarre thing that he's trying to show. And the first part of it looks like abstract scientists. The second part of it looks like abstract philosophy until you get to spirit again. And spirit again sounds religious. And yeah, this highlighting makes things really challenging to read and highlight at the same time. So thank you guys for staying with this. But I hope it's helpful to show the topsy-turviness, because spirit and pure essence are theological terms. And they're theological terms that religious people will like, but not these abstract scientists. And then, of course, we turn back to the abstract scientists, the ones that are secular, in terms of saying that all that sort of a priori stuff is not important. We really want to make sure that we're grounded on empiricism. The state constitution is built by people in the here and now. So you can start seeing right away, now that we're at the end of the paragraph, that he's trying to communicate something in a way that our consciousness is not enjoying. Like if this is you, look at all these different colors in terms of the form. It's switching multiple times. And it's going to feel paradoxical to you. But Hegel is saying that metaphysics is really the thing which makes meaning at all. So the nation, the spirit of a people, a culture, has an essence that you can only really know if you grasp the metaphysics clearly. Sort of like how state politicians, you can't really be a good politician if you don't understand the Constitution. It's like all these apparatuses are running, but there's no kernel, we don't understand what's generating all of this. It's like people are just following customs or rituals or something out of habit without actually reflecting on them. It's sort of how hegemony sort of functions. So this is what the point is. He's really just emphasizing that the metaphysics is wholly dismissed as unimportant. And he's saying that, okay, we're going to return to a different perspective. But before I show you how he really means it, I'm going to show you a different document on the screen of where we're going to copy and paste our work. We're going to be tracking how our brains are switching in this painful way, and it's going to start creating an inner coherence. So yesterday's session is pasted in here in a Google document where the first paragraph is by itself, no highlighting, and then we show how external consciousness reads it, and then we show how internal consciousness reads it. So here we're going to do the same thing for paragraph number 2. Here's the paragraph without any highlighting, where there's nobody can agree on how to understand Hegel because it's really everybody's external to the actual content. That's why we're in a mega crisis worldwide and ripping ourselves apart with trust reducing, is because our language is breaking down as the internet allows us to experience a much higher degree of diversity. It exposes how big the world actually is, and the diversity we can't really seem to handle. So this is how external consciousness reads that paragraph. Very colorful, right? Because Hegel is really doing something amazing in terms of universality and switching between these modes effortlessly because he understands their actual meanings, their absolute meanings. So let's go back to the document. Oh, can you put your mic on mute there, Michael? So what we're going to do here quickly is to say, well, actually how Hegel really means this is he's really speaking to abstract scientists and showing how they're the ones making the big mistake because they're the ones in power at the time. And he's showing here at the end, we're going to make an extra highlight up into the metaphysics here, up until pure essence. We're going to highlight this in white font because he's hinting at real philosophy, like how it's supposed to be. He's saying that real philosophers, genuine wisdom, are understanding state politics and all these other essences as really being just philosophy and an inner unity, that it's important to consider the metaphysics. So this is how he means it. Abstract philosophers, and that this little part here in white is really hinting at how bizarre it is that we're not focusing on metaphysics when we're focusing on logic or these state upgrades. So this is how we're supposed to understand what Hegel means to the inner unity, who he's trying to address, what mode he's trying to address it in, and we'll paste it here next to the really confusing paragraph. And of course my font for some reason is off, so we're working out the bugs here because we're constantly experimenting in the way of the notion, which is constantly alive and adapting. Okay, so if you want, you can leave comments on this document as well. I'll put the link to this document so that even after the sessions you can go and ask questions on your own time, and we'll have people coming in to help you. So really, between paragraph 1 and 2 of the Science of Logic, he's really just highlighting that something wrong has occurred in the last 25 years in Germany, and he's about to correct it. And he's hinting at how he's going to do that. He's going to do it through redefining what we mean by metaphysics, science, spirit, religion. He's going to bring them into coherence. And that's basically what I wanted to show today. I hope you don't mind the glitches and the slow pace. As we get better at this, I will be moving quicker, and it won't be so painful as we go literally word by word. But this is the reading that I believe will have even Hegelians coming together, so that we can actually interpret Hegel in a way that unites us instead of divides us. Did somebody raise their hands? Did you want to leave a comment now, just to demonstrate how people can leave comments if they want to join these live and they don't want to wait for an answer? Did you want to try Andrew or Altentropic? If not, I guess what we can do is call the session to a close. If you want to jump into the chats, you can, and you can sort of even leave applauses, because there's buttons in the chat that if you click on the bottom, it opens up, and you can, if you like it or if you love it, you can just leave us some emoticons. So wonderful. Okay, I hear sound. Somebody, it sounds like it's popping up here. But thank you for joining us. We're going to have the next one tomorrow, and these are going to be short, in roughly 15 to 20 minute segments as we just do paragraphs. Maybe we'll do a couple of paragraphs once we get into a flow. But yeah, we looked at a couple of bugs here. And oh, speaking of one thing that I missed, when I was reinterpreting this paragraph, I should have switched this to internal. So really the second paragraph, when we highlighted it in this blue color, now we're looking at the paragraph, how Hegel means it from the internal perspective. And that's what I want to switch. This way, when you're watching the videos, you know what mode that we're in, because it's going to start getting really topsy-turvy, even when Hegel's intentionally switching between the modes. So yeah, I hope you found that very helpful. And we'll be doing this for the next 4 months every day. And if it starts to become recognized as the way to correct the mega crisis, the split between the left Hegelians, right Hegelians, and even between Hegelians and Marxists, and even the postmodernists and the meta-modernists, this will unite all these modes together: art, religion, all abstract philosophies, all abstract sciences, all the domains, interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, to get to this genuine wisdom that's missing in the world and is the missing puzzle piece to solving the existential crises that we face. Oh, here we go, our first actual question. Okay, so from Andrew, he says, let's see where the question comes from. He highlights, oh, interesting. For instance, is that a spelling mistake they put in there? He says, so is Hegel's problem with contemporary scientists and philosophers that they're disregarding the wisdom of the past sciences? Specifically, that they have become too reliant on the world outside? Yeah, that's a great point. Exactly. So they're sort of edifying and placating the past and saying that it was superstition, or, you know, that we're so much better now, we're so much more advanced, and it was to continue this sort of colonialist mentality that Europe had at the time, very Eurocentric. that yes, their technologies, their war technologies, were based on analyzing the real world, the empirical world, and that gives you a little bit of power at first because there are universals, true knowledge in nature. Nature is repeating divine knowledge or the metaphysics in physical form, but it has two types of evolution. It has Darwinian natural selection. That is happening in our contingent universe, right? Our universe may or may not align with perfection. And then we have creationism happening as negative entropy, negentropy. That's the kind of evolution where complexity is increasing instead of decreasing. And our human consciousness is a version of that. And so in the past, yes, there was earlier versions, but there was more universality in a certain way. It just wasn't explicit. Now we sort of have a breaking of the natural order, more like anthropocentrism, where we've become conscious that we're more advanced, but we're doing it in the abstract mode, which is why we're breaking the circle of life and we're creating systems that are not really natural. We're spreading sort of like a virus on Earth. This sort of linear development has taken hold, and we need to go back to the past, go back to the wisdoms of the past, the timeless truths that were right, and reconnect this nonlinear logic of real metaphysics, real Hegelian thought, and to bring us back into harmony with true knowledge, the true nature of nature, and raise ourselves to a more enlightened position of knowledge, of actual knowing. That was a great question. Okay, I hope I did an okay job answering that one. I'm sure more will come up. And if you guys who are watching have any questions, either participate in the next session or get on these documents, and hopefully we'll have people meeting you where you are, because we truly want you to understand this in a self-determining way. That's what spirit is to Hegel. That's what freedom is. Genuine freedom is to have you rise up and have your wisdom heard as well. So thank you very much, and we will see you guys next time. Until then, keep sublating.